Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's been reported that there were difficulties with the blowout preventers prior to this accident. Something about some of the workers noticed some rubber or something that had come up. Is that correct?
I believe you're referring to the 60 Minutes segment that aired on Sunday.
I am.
Mr. Williams, in that report, does make reference to having seen rubber material, a handful of rubber material come across the shale shakers, which is a piece of equipment on the rig. But I would just inform the committee that the piece of material that we're talking about is about 3 feet in diameter. It's about 18 inches tall, and it weighs about 2,000 pounds. And so a handful of small chunks in relation to that large piece of rubber I would characterize as almost immaterial.
I'm going to repeat the question. My question was, it was reported that this had occurred. Were you aware that it was reported?
The first indication I had of it being reported was having watched the 60 Minutes segment myself.
Okay. And are you aware of any of your other staff that might have been advised of this issue?
I'm not aware of anyone else having been informed.
Okay. It has been also reported that there was a disagreement between BP and Transocean at the commencement of you guys beginning this in February, and there was this staff meeting, and there was a disagreement of whether to move forward. Did that occur?
I'm not aware of any disagreement at the commencement of the operation in February.
Okay, I'm going back to the 60 Minutes report that was this Sunday. And they said that there was a meeting and there was a disagreement of how and when to move forward.
I believe the disagreement that Mr. Williams was referring to took place on April 20th.
Okay, so you are aware that a disagreement did occur?
The only indication I have of it is having watched Mr. Williams' segment on 60 Minutes.
Are you aware that a disagreement, whether a disagreement occurred or not, other than what you saw in 60 Minutes?
That's been the only direct first-hand account I have seen of a disagreement.
Okay. And no one has said to you that this occurred?
That's the only first-hand account I have.
No one else has said to you that this has occurred? First account, second account?
I have hearsay references to it, but Mr. Williams' account on
Have you
Sunday,
heard other references other than Mr. Williams?
Anecdotal hearsay evidence of a disagreement.
Thank you. You've talked about BP now. You mentioned about a commitment for damages. One of the things that's been said in prior hearings is that there was a little back and forth going on, and are you committed to paying for the damages regardless of what independent disagreements you might have with some of the other companies that you work with?
Yes, I've testified and would like to make it clear again today. We are a responsible party under the Oil Pollution Act. We will fulfill our obligations. Blame, liability, and those kind of things, whether it's between companies or whatever, we'll figure that out later. But we are a responsible party in that regard. So what I'm saying is we're going to take care of it, and we'll deal with other things later.
Thank you, sir. Is it true that some of the cleanup workers are being required to sign a waiver?
No, I don't think so. Early on, the first few days when we were signing up boats, a standard contract was used, and it had some waiver language, and that was brought to our attention, and we tore it up. And there are no waiver stipulations in any of the things we're doing.
Have you notified those workers that that's been torn up and that's no longer?
I think it's obvious. I think that was fixed early on. I do.
Will you go back and make sure?
I will.
Okay. Thank you. Why is there a disagreement between the total amount of oil that's leaking? BP has said 5,000. Other reports are saying otherwise. Why do you think there's a disagreement? And do you stand by the fact, do you stand by your point that it's only 5,000?
I think there are a range of estimates, and it's impossible to measure. That's the reality. And what we've been doing with government officials, government experts, industry experts, is trying to come up with the best estimate. And that has been done essentially by understanding what's happening at the surface and trying to understand volume there, adding to it what we believe the oil properties, how it would disperse in the water column as it moves to the surface, and those two added together is the estimated volume. It's been clear from day one there's a large uncertainty range around that.
Is it possible that it could be the larger number that's being reported?
It's theoretically possible. I don't think anyone believes it's quite that high that has been working on this. I believe that the uncertainty range is around that 5,000 number, and it could be higher. But if the number you're talking about is 70,000 barrels a day, I don't know this, but I don't think people that are working with it believe that that's a possibility.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, could I ask my last question, please? Thank you, sir. My last question, I have BP facilities in my district. I'm in Carson, California. We also have offshore drilling right outside of my district, so this is an important issue. And let me just say, first of all, I appreciate you coming. I haven't heard you take the fifth, either one of you, and you very candidly answered the questions, and that's what we need. My last question is, what honest lessons could you say to us, to this committee, that we could consider to do, whether it's legislation or regulation, to ensure that this never happens again?
Sorry, I think it's early, but what I would say is the redundancy in the systems that are deployed, the capability of being able to intervene in subsea environment. We're learning a lot. We're learning a lot. We've got to parlay those learnings as quickly as we can into whatever regulation should be and whatever industry capability should be. And so I think it's early, but we're learning very quickly.
So you're not required to know that prior to having the ability to drill?
Well, the response plans so far over the last 50 years have been, quite frankly, concentrated on surface response. And as we've gone through this, we predicate a lot of the assumptions in the deep water around a blowout preventer that is working, or at least accessible, that you can get on top of it with another one. And that's not the case in this unique situation. And I think we have to learn from that.
Thank you for your candidacy, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I thank gentlelady.